Gorgeous.
So cute. I love it.
Hi, Gina. Welcome.
Hola.
Hi, Gina.
Hi, good to meet you all.
I'm trying to give
Gina,
you
where are you from?
Well, I was from New York City, but now I'm in Western Massachusetts.
So cool.
Welcome.
Make it. 7:03. So in 2 minutes we'll start.
Yes, that sounds very good.
Vamos a hacer lo que las que estamos somos las que somos.
And people just drop in. Don't worry. People just
Yeah. And we'll be chugging along real quick. Let's see a bunch there.
Ay.
Mientras el perro no ladre, todo va a estar bien.
Maria.
Ella es una sata puertorriqueña. Ella es un rescue de Puerto Rico.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's so generous of
Yeah.
you.
Oh, no, I just, I had wanted to help out over there and she's gorgeous. Y entonces cuando llegó era chiquita, se veía un poquito diferente de la foto. Y nosotros pensamos que podía ser una pitbull.
Oh.
Y yo dije, let's make a DNA, make sure she's healthy, que no tenga ningún problema, que esté todo bien. Because even pit bulls can be trained to be wonderful dogs.
My sister.
And so we did that, porque también ella era demasiado activa, era una cosa increíble, es una cosa increíble. Y it turns out in the DNA that she is 15% Chihuahua, 15% Dálmata, 15% Beagle, 8% German Shepherd,
Wow.
and everything else, 2-3%. Ella tiene un reguero ahí tremendo. Pero, ay, Dios mío.
That's a hell of a
Los puertorriqueños, porque somos very mixed. So, mira, hasta los perros son very mixed.
Yo te digo a ti una cosa terrible. No, vaya. Okay. Bueno, señoras, 7:05. Vamos a empezar.
Absolutely.
So
before we start, we're just going to have some announcements. If everyone can put yourselves on mute. And Jeanette wants a very interactive session. So we're not going to ask you to turn off the videos, but put yourselves on mute. But if you have a question, that you have to have answered, then jump in. But if not, she's going to do a Q&A at the end. Okay? And then if she has some presentations and stuff, so let's try to hold the questions to the end. If you don't want to forget them, put them in the chat. Okay? So we'll keep them there, and then when we do Q&A, she'll get started. Okay? So, Anja, take it away.
Okay. So, to add to what Maria, first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for making it, for coming to the class. I haven't taught this class in about 8 or 9 months, so I'm excited. I added some things that have come up, that I've learned along the way that hopefully will be useful for all of you. I do want to say this. If at some point you're super lost, you just feel lost, okay? Put the question in the chat, and I'm going to ask Julia to look. If there's a question that you think needs to be answered right away, because if not, the person can't really, she's not going to get the benefit of everything we're talking about, then alert me, raise your hand or something, and I'll stop, okay? Because I do want to bring you all along. That's the whole point of it. So also the reason that I had asked, if at some point you're embarrassed or whatever, and, or you need to scratch or something, I don't know, you can take off your camera, but I beg you to leave it as you have it, because I think that teachers need to read the room. And when I see your faces, I know if you're with me or if you're, if I'm boring you, talking too much, whatever, and I'm able to adjust and adapt to you rather than just this person, blah, 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 like if you weren't there, right? So when I see you, I know what's going on. So anyway, I just want to tell you a little bit about me. Today, we're going to do a shortened version of a course that I teach for the Miami Book Fair called Finish Your Novel the TV Way. And the most important thing that you need to know about me, I'm sure Julia later can tell you about my books and other things that you may have seen in the bio. But the most important thing was that I always wanted, thank you, Julia, I always wanted to write. When I was 10 years old, I wrote a novel, or I thought it was a novel because it had chapters, but it was only 10 pages long. And it was called California Girl. And my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Tanner, I was living in the Bronx then, and she sent it to a school contest. And the next thing I know, I'm being hauled into the principal's office. Just him, there was nobody else, alone in his office. And he grilled me about the novel and the work. And I realized that it was because he didn't believe I had written it. He thought a 10-year-old didn't know about divorce, couldn't have that vocabulary. You know, all of that to him was just, somebody wrote this for her. And it was such a weird experience for me that I didn't write. I'm sorry? I didn't write again, other than for class. And then I grew up and life happened and I allowed life to happen. And by the time that I was in my 30s, my novel, my project, my book was in a drawer and it had been there for 7 years. And so it took a lot of really wanting it to get that book out, but also of tools. So I guess all this is to say that I understand that you all have lives, and I understand that if you're here, it's because there's something you want to write. You know, you would write a book at some point if you had the time, if you had the money, if people would interrupt you, if people weren't always asking you for favors, if you hadn't gotten sick, if you hadn't gotten married, if you hadn't had kids, you hadn't had grandchildren, you know, life is going to happen. So what I'm going to teach you today is how to figure out if you want that book or that novel nagging at your head anymore, if you want to liberate yourself from it, or if you do want to go ahead with it, what tools you can use no matter how little time you have to finish your book. Okay? So far, so good? Okay. So the way that I learned these things was because at some point I was a single mom of 2 teenage daughters. I was working for Telemundo. I was a news producer. And then my job changed and I started working in programming with telenovela writers. And it inspired me to write a sitcom. So I wrote a sitcom and I presented it, and it was bought by HBO, the Latin American side of HBO. And in also doing, I noticed one thing: people who write for television always finish. Always. They finish because if not, they don't get paid. Not only that, if they don't finish, they probably are not going to get called again for another show. You know, they won't work. So they have to finish. But also they have certain tools that they use that we can use to finish things that we start, right? So I'm going to go through those with you, and, you know, we'll go into them, and then I'll explain the handout so that you can use them. Okay. So the first thing is clarity of purpose. I want you to think about whatever it is that you can't finish, or whatever it is that you would like to start. Because sometimes it's that bad, right? You know it's in there somewhere, but you can't even start. First of all, think if you really want to do this. Sometimes we are in love with the idea of writing, with the idea of writing a novel, or, you know, or a book, but we don't really enjoy writing. You know, when we're actually writing, we're not having fun. Like, for example, I can tell you, I don't like to exercise. I really don't. My best friend likes to exercise. So she sometimes procrastinates and whatnot, but once she starts exercising, she loves it. She's enjoying it. I don't. I always hate it. I like dancing. That I can do, but I cannot work out, right? So I can dance, and I may postpone dancing, going to the salsa class. Sometimes I postpone it for months, but when I show up, I feel it. Let's go. I want to do it. So that's how you can use that to tell yourself, do you really want to write this? And so that you don't torture yourself feeling like, oh, I never finish things, and, you know, I want to do this, but I never do. The first thing is, do you enjoy writing? Once you get to writing, do you enjoy it? Okay? Don't say, I'm not a writer because I'm always procrastinating. And don't say, I'm not a writer because I never finish anything. That's all of us. Most of us anyway. Only ask yourself if you enjoy the actual writing, if you enjoy sharing what you write with others. If you are there writing your thing and it's coming out good and funny and you laugh to yourself. If you've written a scene and you yourself make yourself cry when you read it again, as if it weren't you who wrote it, right? Those things will tell you that you are a writer. You're just a writer living in an impossible time. So first that, right? Liberate yourself, let yourself, if you decide you don't want to write it, then don't write it. You can do many other things. But if you are a writer, then let's go to the next step. And the next step is it a novel? One of the problems that I have with a lot of my students is that the agents, and they go to conferences and they go to workshops and people tell them things like, oh, short story collections don't sell. Or poetry, ay mi madre, te vas a morir de hambre, right? Or yeah, but this is not a book. These are just vignettes of your life and I couldn't sell this. Or you're not gonna be able to sell anything. Oh, there's 100 reasons. And here's the thing, Eula Biss, she's a writer of lyric essays. She won the National Book Award with a book of essays. Each essay is about this long. Some are maybe a page long. It's not a novel, it's not a memoir. It's disjointed, it's beautiful, absolutely wonderful. And if she had listened to some agent, she would never have written it, right? Some people write prose poems. Lydia Davis has made a whole career of micro flash fiction. Like some of her stories have one sentence. Alice Munro all she writes are short stories. That's it. So what I'm trying to say to you is there are many formats, and sometimes there are formats that you don't even know exist. Like I didn't know lyric essays existed, or that there was a form where I could include recipes, news clippings, poetry, prose, fiction, even visual things. I didn't know that existed as a literary form. So I had a lot of things that could have been wonderful lyric essays that I threw off because, this makes no sense. It's just, it's just en pedazos and it's not. So make sure your clarity of purpose. 2, decide if it really is a novel or a memoir. It may be shorter and you're killing yourself. The Curious Case of Benjamin Button was adapted from a short story, by the way, not a novel. Okay, so that's number 2. Once you know that and you're free of all that, weirdness, then, and this is the most important thing that I'm going to tell you today. If you get only this, I'm going to be happy. I would advise to not think about whether you are a writer or not a writer. Notice that at the beginning, I asked you if you enjoyed writing, but don't ask yourself if you are or you're not, because this is what happens. You start writing a book and you're reading it and it's not looking as good as that thing you read by that other woman who's a bestseller, right? And so you think you're not good enough and you say, ay, ¿qué estoy haciendo? I don't know, in my case, when I publish, I'm 40 years old. I don't have the contacts. What am I doing? Maybe I'm wasting my time, right? Maybe I'm not a writer. I'm not gonna make a career out of it. And because of that, you don't write it. Because, or you feel guilty because your kids need time and there you are writing some scene or something. So what about if we just thought, I'm gonna give the world one thing. I'm gonna do one story, one novel, one something. I'm gonna try to finish this story, this book. I'm gonna give it my best try. Whether I'm a writer or not, whether I will publish it or not, whatever will happen, it can't happen until I write it. So I'm just gonna focus on doing this one book and giving it everything I have and breaking all my own rules and just thinking of it as a gift for others. This will help you because I think we're better when we're giving instead of taking, but also because it will help you stay within the story that you need to tell. If I'm thinking about me, I start venting because Trump, because and I just do a whole big, something that should have stayed in my diary. But if I think of you and I think of you reading it, I want you to find it funny and interesting. I want to love you as my reader that I don't yet know. And I feel that when we think of our readers, the best comes out, the best. You know that they want a story. They didn't pay no 15, 16, whatever, however many dollars to be bored or for you to tell them all your pet peeves, right? They bought the book because they want a story. They want a really good story. They want to be taken up and not, not let go off of, right? They want to feel something. And for that, you need to engage them with a story that is as well told as you can manage. So if you think of just giving this one book and not thinking about anything else, you will liberate yourself from a lot of bull that gets into our head and makes us slower and, just takes away our thing. So all of that up to this point is about your brain, about getting your brain in a position to write where whatever other people say doesn't stop you, where your own internal voice doesn't, just completely crush you, so that you are able to speak and claim whatever it is that you need to say. Now, once you do that, now we're going to get into a little bit of not so much, but it's kind of technical. Okay, so bear with me. I'm trying to go in order, and I tried to order this process for you. Okay, so we did this. Now, I think Maria sent you guys a handout. It's called the Novelist Self-Interview. Did you see it? I'm not gonna bore you by going into it all with you, but I just wanna make sure that you do have the handout. I'm gonna open it and try to share the screen so you could see a little bit of it and see if you have it. Let me see if I remember how to share. Bear with me. Okay. Tell me if do you see the document? I need to hear one person, somebody can tell me if you're seeing it.
I can see it.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you guys. Women actually. So this is just a little template that I put together for myself that I've used with all 3 novels. And you can change it. It doesn't have to be exactly that. What you need to know about it is that the purpose is that if you've been thinking of a book for very long, you have a mess in your mind right now. You may have some scenes that you already wrote, but you don't know where they go, and you have a whole bunch of research about the characters, or you have, just stuff. Even if you haven't written anything down in your head, the more time that passes and you're thinking about a book that you're not writing, the more your head gets full of crap. So this is a way for you to distill into some place organized where you can see it, what you know about your own novel, right? Do you know if it's a novel? Are you sure it's the best way to tell the story, and why? If so, for now, what is your novel titled? What have you thought about? One of the reasons I ask that is because if you don't have a title yet, you probably have a lot of confusion about the novel itself that you need to first, work with. What is your novel about in 25, 35 words? And you try. If you can't do it, it doesn't mean you're not a writer or the book isn't good. It just means you need to do more work thinking about the book before you can write it. And that's the first clue about why you're not finishing. Something isn't clear yet. What is the theme, the heart of your novel, what you really want to say in the end? For example, in my first novel, what I wanted to say was that heartbreak was as bad as an actual illness. It could destroy you. It could sap your energy just as much as, pneumonia or something like that. That was my point. It took me a while to get to that was what I was writing about, that I was writing about heartbreak. What are some other topics your novel will deal with? List at least one. All of this is to interview you. If at the end of this, you don't have any answers, then you need to start thinking about what it is that, that you've been having in your head all this time. What is the tone or outlook? This is something that always trips people up. They have in their mind that they're gonna write the next Latin American classic, but when they start writing, it comes out funny, or it comes out with bad words, and they can't make those 2 ideas fit, right? And so they think it's just not good. Maybe it just needs to be something else or have another tone,
Antoinette?
Yes.
One of our listeners wants to know, what is a lyric essay?
Oh, thank you so much. See, that's one of those technical things. So a lyric essay is a form of essay that uses, they say lyrical, but lyrical means poetry, poetic. So even though it's not necessarily a poem, it does use poetic forms, meaning imagery, you know, it's a different kind of language. And then in the 1970s, there's a literary journal called the Seneca Review, and they coined it as a form. So before then, it was just people, if somebody did that, they were just doing something crazy that didn't fit anything. And they said, no, this is a lyric essay. And the rules basically for a lyric essay is that it's divided into parts. Each part can be a line or longer, or 3 pages or 4 pages, however long. And each part doesn't have to be prose. It can be poetry, it can be a song, it can be a clip, a newspaper clipping, a photo. It can be anything. It can be an audio file for all you know. It can be anything. It's putting together different elements to tell one story. Now, you do need to tell one story for it to be a lyric essay. It has to fit together, right? All these things that don't fit, when you put them in a certain order, kind of tell a story. And then it's a lyric essay. I hope that answers it. It's a little complex. Later, I can put in the chat some examples of lyric essays so you guys can get the idea. Okay? All right, I'm hoping it's okay. I ask you in that to kind of list names that you've thought of, because sometimes you don't even know the story, but you know the character of the protagonist and you know the name. So, you know, try to list that. You don't have to do a whole, I'm sorry? I heard a voice, but I don't know if, so for example, you know, I don't want you to use a lot of time right now doing like people tell you to do a whole character biography. That is so boring to do. I cannot tell you. I have a better way that I think that might take less time and get you engaged. But you do need to know like some basic things, you know? And then I have you write one-line descriptions of places that appear in your novel, because sometimes we think of the person, but we don't think whether it makes sense that it take place somewhere. And then there's, you know, other things. And you can do this at your own pace, but the whole point of it is that if you don't know something, just don't answer it. And if you know it, that it should be in this one document. So in the end, this one document will tell you everything you know about the book you're trying to write. And that's a much better place to start from than just all that confusion in different papers and color-coded folders and all of that. Once you've done that, the next thing, and I just want to stop real quick right here, is to read like a novelist for a little while. After you've done your self-interview, you're going to be drained. You're going to take books and you're going to read them. You're not going to read the whole thing. You're just going to read pieces of books. And you're going to mark them. And every time you write something that inspires you, I want you to mark it and put it aside so that you always have a little mountain or a little shelf of books that you can turn to quickly for inspiration. One of the best things you can do to get yourself writing is to read something first, like 10, 15 minutes. I'm gonna give you an example. This, and I hope, are you guys seeing my screen still? I'm hoping that you are. This is chapter 1 of Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar. I'm gonna read to you just a little piece. And that would be enough. And you tell me at the end if you feel like writing, okay? So, chapter 1. It was a queer, sultry summer, the summer they electrocuted the Rosenbergs, and I didn't know what I was doing in New York. I'm stupid about executions. The idea of being electrocuted makes me sick, and that's all there was to read about in the papers. Goggle-eyed headlines staring up at me on every street corner and at the fusty, peanut-smelling mouth of every subway. It had nothing to do with me, but I couldn't help wondering what it would be like being burned alive all along your nerves. I thought it must be the worst thing in the world. New York was bad enough. By 9 in the morning, the fake country wet freshness that somehow seeped in overnight evaporated like the tail end of a sweet dream. Mirage gray at the bottom of their granite canyons, the hot streets wavered in the sun. The car tops sizzled and glittered, and the dry cindery dust blew into my eyes and down my throat. I kept hearing about the Rosenbergs over the radio and at the office till I couldn't get them out of my mind. It was like the first time I saw a cadaver. For weeks afterward, the cadaver's head, or what there was left of it, floated up behind my eggs and bacon at breakfast and behind the face of Buddy Willard, who was responsible for my seeing it in the first place. And pretty soon I felt as though I were carrying that cadaver's head around with me on a string, like some black noseless balloon stinking of vinegar. I knew something was wrong with me that summer because all I could think about was the Rosenbergs and how stupid I'd been to buy all those uncomfortable, expensive clothes hanging limp as fish in my closet, and how all the little successes I toted up so happily at college fizzled to nothing outside the slick marble and plate glass fronts along Madison Avenue. I was supposed to be having the time of my life. I was supposed to be the envy of thousands of other college girls just like me all over America who wanted nothing more than to be tripping about in those same size 7 patent leather shoes I'd bought in Bloomingdale's one lunch hour with a black patent leather belt and black patent leather pocketbook to match. And when my picture came out in the magazine the 12 of us were working on, drinking martinis in a skimpy imitation silver lame bodice stuck onto a big fat cloud of white tulle, on some starlight roof in the company of several anonymous young men with all-American bone structures, hired or loaned for the occasion, everybody would think I must be having a real whirl. So I'm gonna stop sharing here so I can see you all. Didn't you feel like you wanted me to shut up and just start writing something right away when you start hearing something that's good? So all I'm saying is, I mean, that was less than 3 minutes. All I'm saying is one of the best ways to just get going is to have something at your ready that you don't need to finish then, because then we think that reading means now we have to get through a bunch of novels. We don't. Not to start writing. Once you start writing, you'll want to finish the novels that are good. You'll get back to them and you'll start getting into that. So it's kind of, let's do it in reverse. Instead of reading the whole novel first to then write, let's read a little bit, start writing, and then keep reading, right? So that would be the next thing. I'm gonna show you, and I think I'll send it after, but I have something called Angie's List, which I'm gonna share with you right now real quick, just so that you see it, but you'll read it later. Hold on. So this is Angie's List. And what I do is every time I read something and I think that it's good for something, I write it down. So The Misfortune of Marion Palm is a classic tragedy with Black humor that is written in small little vignettes. So it's good when you're trying to write short things. The Bell Jar is great for metaphors. Did you hear that peanut smelling, fusty subway opening? Il Doctoro for action, you know, and so on and so forth. So I will send this to you. I have some in Spanish too, for those of you who prefer Spanish. And that's what I mean by reading like a novelist. Every time you read and you see something that would, you know, that you would want to emulate, write it down and keep it handy. So that's that. Then once you, just to recap, right? We figure out we really want to do this. We decided whether it's going to be a novel, a memoir, or something else that's much shorter. And then we kind of put together a reading set for us as novelists to kind of get us started, kind of to use it like a little bit of gasoline when you're going to start writing. By the way, I want to recommend a book called Story Genius. Story Genius. It's one of the best books I've read on organizing or filling in what goes into a novel or a long story. Another good one is Save the Cat Writes a Novel. They're short, they're good, they get straight to the point, and I think you would find them enjoyable to read as well. So now we get to what I call the blueprint. Let me stop sharing for just a minute. So far, does anybody have like an important question? Do you feel lost? Do you feel, is there a question that we need right now? No, we're good? Okay. So I'm gonna share with you the blueprint. So one of those things that I saw that TV writers always did that helped them to write is that they had what we called a map route. A map route is a blueprint of the entire story, right? So if the telenovela has 120 chapters, you use a lot of writers and you can't have them inventing everything new. They have to follow a certain base. So that base is laid out in a big board, in a big blackboard in the writer's room. I would do my own version, which I'm gonna share with you now. So you see how you can do it as well and what needs to be in it for a novel or for a memoir. So this was the one. I'm gonna open it here and let me just make it like a slideshow. So this was the one that I did. It was just a PowerPoint, and I did it. It doesn't even have to be done like this whole, you know, for The Clairvoyant of Calle Ocho, my 2014-2015 novel. And so in a blueprint, the telenovela writer or the series writer needs to know the casting, what casting was done. And so what I did was I would go online, and before I used to do it with magazines, which was even worse because I made a mess. But now I do it online. I try to find photos of people that remind me of the character I'm thinking of. That doesn't mean that the character later comes out exactly like that character, but it just helps me to figure out why that character should be a certain way. So for example, when this actress is Ligia Maglietta, is her name. Ligia Maglietta, I'm sorry. She's Italian, but she seemed to me to look Cuban. So in my head, I said, yeah, I picked her because but what else do I see? She looks like a woman who has liberated herself. She looks like a woman who has said the hell with it, right? And I realized that that was what I hadn't been able to write about my character. I knew it in my head, but it wasn't until I saw a photo and I started doing my own casting as if I were the director doing my own series, right? That I was able to pinpoint what I needed. So let's see. Oh, why can't I go to the next slide? Oh, so places. Remember when we were checking the novelist's self-interview? I started figuring out what places might be, and I said, okay, I want to set it in Little Havana. Why? It's an immigrant community, but it's also very lively. It's a community that I know really well, that has a lot of color, that has a lot of what I think would make this a good setting. Also because my character was going to be Cuban. So I wanted to sort of, you know, figure out, and that's Little Havana and the places there that inspired me. Then she was the landlord and there's a murder, and the murder happens in that neighborhood. So I did like a little map of where she lived. She was the landlord of hers, right? And where the other characters lived. Because also later I wanted to be able to write things that would make sense, right? How long would it take her to get from this apartment to that apartment, right? So that was important to me, and mapping it out like that helped me to write actual scenes. Then I wanted to do something very brief about characters and relationships. And by the way, I didn't do this all in one day. I did it very little by little. You know, for a while, I didn't have this character. I didn't realize why I needed him. I knew there was a child. I created this character because I realized there was no way for her to know things about her if there wasn't somebody que llevara y trajera. So when you start thinking like this, you start thinking about the things that keep you from writing. Because if you say, oh, I have an hour today, I'm gonna sit down and write. And then you are confused and you don't know some of these things, you stop because it's just too confusing to keep writing without knowing some basic things. Let's see what else. So then I went into detail with each casting, right? There are things that are in those photos that's what those photos tell me about my character. That if you read the novel, you'll see it. You see there why those are the ones that. This is Jorge Colon, the guy that she ends up with in the end. I wanted him to be not too handsome, a little quirky, like un feo bonito, kind of something like that. This is the bad guy, right? This is the wife of the bad guy. This is the guy that represents everything that is good in the novel. This is the confused girl and her child. This was just the women of solidarity that, you know, she would be a comadre if she were a real person. She actually is. It's Betsy Johnson, but I was seeing her as something else. I think that ended the. So anyway, you can do it your own way. You know, you do it your own way. You may do just one photo. You may not do any photos at all. You may do it on your phone, in your notes app or something. But have something that helps you to create the world that you're trying to write about. You need that map route to propel you as you go along. I don't even know why people say, oh, I was inspired and then the characters took over and I wrote 300 pages. That is so much bullshit. Excuse my French. There's no way, because 300 pages, it's a big world with a lot of details. Are you expected to have all that in your head and just have it come out flawlessly? What is that? I mean, who does that? I don't even know. And it sets it up so that we think that we're supposed to do that we're supposed to have that inspiration come and just, perfectly come out. No, that doesn't even make any sense. If you're going to make a well-layered novel with a lot of subtext and, and you're going to learn as you're reading, as you're writing, you learn things that you didn't know when you began, if you start paying attention to these things, right? So that's the blueprint part. Normally in class, we spend a couple of classes making each one, just kind of figuring out and actually doing this thinking. Right now, I'm just telling you, but we usually do it in class, right? So after you have your blueprint, and your blueprint can be whatever you want. Mine usually has the casting, the locations, a map. You want to have that log line. Remember how I said, try to describe what your novel is about in 25, 35 words? Keep trying and save every version, because as you keep writing, you're going to get better and better and better and better. And you're going to start refining, and that serves as a way, kind of like a compass, so that you don't get lost, right? Because then you're writing and you go, oh, you see a movie and you go, wow, I love that scene where they're in the sea, the Victorian ladies. I wish I could have a scene like that. Maybe I can. And you start going crazy, trying to include in one book everything you see that you like. And then that's where you go crazy and you get lost, and all of a sudden nothing makes sense. So everything doesn't have to be in your book, but when you get tempted to fit something else in, look at your log line and go, oh, my book is about this, and in the end, what I want to talk about is this. And this I can leave for another book. It doesn't really fit here, right? So that's the thing of your blueprint. Now what time is it? Oh, we're doing perfect on time. That's great. I may have actually been going on too fast. No? Good? Good pace? Yeah? Okay. So then let me try to open the other handout that Maria gave you. It's called the novel's pre-pro plan. So head writers of series, I'm going to try to share it now with you guys. Head writers of series, let me explain it first. Head writers of series do pre-production, right? So when I sold my series, the first thing is, are you in pre-production yet? Pre-production means that it's serious, that it's going to get done, and that somebody's paying money to have that series be handed in, complete, edited, everything ready for putting it on TV at some point. Meaning you have to have things in writing that proves what you're using the money on. So you do a pre-pro plan. And in that pre-pro plan, you put all the tasks, what's been done and what hasn't. And here's a real genius. Let me step back a minute with that. Remember how I told you that when I was writing my first novel, I was the mother of 2 teenage children and was working in television. I never had an afternoon to write. Like when people say, oh, what day do you write? I was like, oh. I would just crack up, because a day to write, are you kidding me? What? I never had the time. And even if I did have a little time, what would happen is I would be so hyper from other things. And I would have so many worries from other things in life in my head that I would sit down and not be able to write because I couldn't focus. So with the pre-pro plan, I was able to divide things into tasks so that I was writing when I was not writing. And I'm going to show you now what I mean. And this is crucial for you to stay writing when you don't have time. Because what happens is, just say you start writing 100 pages and then something happens and you leave it. You get out of the mindset of the novel, and getting back into it is the pits. First of all, you have to read all 100 pages or however many pages you have left. Most probably, if you get out of the novel, when you reread them, you don't like any of it. And you feel like you need to start over. But it's because you left that world, and now it's hard to get back in it. So one way to stay in the world of the novel as you're writing so that you don't have to waste work is through this little bad boy that I'm going to share with you now. Okay. So here it is. This is not it. Hold on. Let me close all the other stuff so I don't drive you crazy with too many things. Wow. I did open a lot of things. Okay, so here it is. All right. So, for example, this was like, it's almost like your contract with yourself. Writing a novel takes time, weeks, months, years. If you want to keep life from interfering, you need a plan for your time and energy level with the goal to keep yourself focused. So your goal is to get a finished draft that you can evaluate and revise. By the way, don't waste time revising and rewriting scenes before you have a complete draft. Because until you get to that end and everything is tied together, you have no idea whether that scene is even going to be there. So, hello. Sí, aquí estoy. Let me stop sharing so that I can hear. ¿Quién me habla? ¿Quién me habló? I heard somebody say hello. No? Maybe we have a ghost. Or we're being bombed or something. I don't know. Anyway, let me share again. Sorry. Okay. So I did this plan for Los Muertos de Hambre, okay? My plan was 300 pages because 300 pages is really like 250 pages when it gets printed. I put 20 chapters of approximately 15 pages. In my case, I did that because I had 2 other novels written, and I knew that I naturally gravitated towards that length of chapter, like my scenes are around that. So 300 pages, 20 chapters of approximately 15 pages. I don't know why it says 900 there. It's 300, and then why 26 chapters. In my case, because I come from TV, usually seasons are 13, and that gives you like a perfect arc. But you don't have to use any of that. You can use 10 chapters of 10 pages, whatever it is that you feel comfortable or that you think is like the kind of novel that you want to write. For example, one of my favorite novels is A Far Cry from Kensington by Muriel Spark. It's a little novelita, and I like little novelitas. I don't write them, but I would like to. And I wanted this one to be a little novelita. So that's the format. Then I set up and I said, okay, I want to have a complete draft in a year. I'm going to give myself 1 month of pre-production. And this is just, I'm making it up. You can make it up yourself depending on your life. I put 20 sessions of 1 to 2 hours and also a list of tasks for shorter amounts of time. So for example, if I had to be at the doctor and I had to wait for half an hour, I had a task that I could do even at the doctor's. For example, I could research names from Spain because my character was from Spain. I could look for a list of songs that I wanted to be playing in one scene or another. And what that did is it kept me thinking about my novel, but there were things that I could do when you feel like doing something mindless, when you don't really feel like focusing, but you're still writing because you're getting details that you're later gonna put into scenes. So I would write those things in advance so that when I had those little ratitos, yo podía aprovechar. I would look up my sessions and my tasks that I had written, and I would do one and check it off, right? And also when I was writing, and I had a scene and I had to stop, I tried to keep going with the scene and put a question mark on whatever it is that I didn't know, and then I would write that task. And I knew that the next thing that I would do would be, I could think about this in the bathroom. I could think about this, you know, oh my God, it's so dark. It got so dark behind me. I could do this anywhere, depending on the task. If I had a little more time, then I could, you know, take on some of the, you know, bigger tasks. And it changed as I kept going. Sometimes the task was to revise a scene or to revise a chapter top to bottom or to review all the names and make sure, you know what I'm saying? Like, not all the time you're writing perfect scenes. And then one of the most important things I did was figure out what my life looked like and make a writing plan. So for me, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays from 9 to 11 worked. My kids weren't there. They had their activities at that time. And then I had Saturdays at Starbucks when they were with their father from 2 to 10. So that day I could just do a long day. Your life may be completely different. And then I figured that that would give me 14 hours a week. What could I realistically do in 14 hours a week? I tried to be very conservative. I put 7 pages. That gave me, in 43 weeks, that gave me 301 pages. And that included reading at least 15 minutes before every session. So you see, it gave me a plan that was so doable that I could do it. You know, if I set up that one day I would write 15 minutes, then that's what I'm gonna write. But when I sit down, since I already know what I'm writing because I have my sessions and I have my tasks and I have a sense of the world that I'm writing and what I'm writing for, I could then use those 15 minutes to get it done. And let me, am I still sharing? Yes, sorry, there you guys are.
Madre, we're at 7:47.
Okay, I think I have like 5 more minutes, maybe
Okay.
3 to 5 more minutes, and then questions
Okay.
for you guys. So in the end, everything that I've taught you today or everything that I've shared with you today are just the tools that work for me. Maybe none of these work for you, but whatever tools work for you that keep you in the world of your novel and give you something like an organized plan to get to the end of where you need to get will help you. Just sitting down to write and see what comes out is the worst way. It's the way to get yourself really frustrated and, you know, not feeling like you're going anywhere or advancing, not giving you a sense of progress, right?
Right.
I will send these notes also to Julia in case you know they want to share with any of you guys. Everything that I shared with you is just things that I do for myself that have worked for me. And I think that's about it. If you guys have any questions, feel free. I'm all yours.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I learned about one sheets. Oh, this is Gina.
Hi, Gina.
Hi.
I see you now. Okay.
I recently learned about one sheets and how they're used. I think for like pitching TV shows
Right.
and for commercials. Is that similar to?
It's different. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So one sheets usually have the whole concept in them. They're more about the concept than what you would see. Whereas a log line, it's much shorter. So you have to get to the essence. The only thing I would tell you about one sheet is if you do your one sheet and make sure your one sheet includes the essence of your novel. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. I had a student who I asked him, what is your novel about? He told me it was about power. I said, okay. I mean, that could be a lot of things, right? Power is a lot of things. As I kept, the class continued, in the end, he and I realized that what he was really writing about was how power could corrupt even good people, even those incorruptibles, that there were these elements that could succeed in getting a really good person to become corrupted. Now that's a log line. See, if you tell me, do you want to read a novel about power? I'll go, I don't know, but if you tell me, do you want to read a novel about this really good guy that falls in with this, and they end up, or maybe not, right? Maybe they almost do, but he saves himself, who knows? But then you've kind of honed in. That's what a log line is. It hones in on the essence of what you want to say.
Awesome, thank you so much. That's super helpful.
Sure. Anybody else?
I just wanted to say that I've never seen, and mira que I've been to a lot of workshops and sessions with different authors. I've never seen the strategies that you just posted today.
Me neither. Thank you. Me neither. But you know what I think? You know why I think it is? Because I think we do them, but we don't think of them as strategies. Like it took me a while. Like I had worked in television and with the telenoveleros, like I call them, for maybe 2 years before I said, wait a minute, how come this dum-dum finished this whole thing and I'm still writing the freaking novel and it's still in my drawer? He's not smarter than I am. What's going on, right? It took me a while to put that together. And also, we don't like to tell people that we don't really write. I don't know why, it's like an embarrassment thing, When I met my husband, he said, I never see you writing. Maybe you don't have, maybe it's a hobby. And I got so pissed that I finished. But I realized that I also was always hiding from him, that when I wasn't writing, I wasn't telling. I don't think I told myself that I wasn't writing, but it made me feel bad, So thank you.
Yeah. And you're so right about, I've written for so many years. It took me about 15 years to even read something.
Yeah, you need to. And the thing is when you finish, first of all, you'll be able to make it better. But second, don't even worry, you will get published. There's a lot of publishing going on that people don't talk about. Not all publishing is Simon & Schuster. And by the way, I have nothing bad to say about Simon & Schuster. My first novel, they published my first novel. But it's not the only place. Big publishing houses are not the only place. And they may not even be the best place for you to publish your work. There are places with other benefits that may be better for you in the end, because what you really want is for people to read you, right? To have a community of readers. So don't even worry about all that publishing stuff, honestly, until you have at least a draft.
So I have a question for you. So
With this, because
hi,
I'm.
this is Dr. Charlie. I'm not showing my face because
That's
I
okay.
look horrible today.
That's okay.
But you got my picture up there. Pero, you know, I work more on documentaries and talk show. And
Right.
so my thing is more of, you know, I do kind of your storyboard that you were mentioning.
Right.
You know, I have the questions that I want to ask people and how to put the responses together and so on. And I guess for me, it's more of, I see so much and so many little that you can go, oh my God, this is another one and this is another one. And so, you know, staying focused is I don't want to say it's a big issue, but it is that piece of, I'm already thinking of the second documentary and the third documentary
Right.
and bringing all of those things together.
Yeah, you have a bigger challenge in the sense that, for example, when you do an interview, you probably have, I don't know, 5 hours of tape that you need logged, right? Because you don't know where the good part is until you read the whole thing and seen the whole thing again and how they fit.
Right.
It's different because, you know, a novelist has a story arc to guide her, and as a documentarian, you could too. But I do think that, I mean, I've done them. I haven't done a lot. They're not my favorite to do. They're my favorite to watch, but not my favorite to do. And I've had to trace a story. Like the ones that I've done were never many parts. They were always, because I needed that story arc to guide me. I needed to know where I wanted to get and what I wanted to say in the end. Right? And people have such interesting stories that you're right. You could want to do them all. But for example, I did a documentary about immigrant women. It won an Emmy actually, but it was immigrant women who left their countries and came to the United States to take care of other people's kids while leaving their kids behind. So what I knew that what I wanted was that feeling. I didn't want all immigrant women. It wasn't about how bad immigrant women had it. It wasn't about the issue of poverty in our countries. It wasn't about the reasons even that they became immigrants. I just wanted to know what happened to, you know, how that decision played out. So that helped me because I was able to talk to them about what made them leave with their child, who had they left the child with, how was their life here now, how did they help their children, see how everything revolves around the same arc.
Yeah.
And then I realized that I needed the other side. I needed to go and see the kids and see what they thought. And so one of the kids was 6 years old, and she told me that she was behaving really good so that her mom could take her with her to the United States, which broke me forever. The second were teenagers, and they said their mother didn't care about them. They thought their mother was living it up, and their mother was in an efficiency with 3 jobs to send them jeans, which they didn't want. And then the third were already grown, and they were in Honduras, and they realized their mother's sacrifices was why they had been able to study a career. So they were grateful, but there was a coldness, let me tell you. There was a certain coldness, certain something, you know? And so, but again, all of those 3, even though they seem different, they still go to that center, the decision to leave your kids and go and, you know, and take care of somebody else's kids. So, I mean, I don't know if that helps you, but I think if you're able to find a center and say, this is the main thing that needs to be in here, and then maybe choose 2 or 3 things that are related and that you think augment that one main thing, you may be able to keep a lot of the other stuff out, you know, for another time.
Right.
Hopefully, but it's still harder. It's still harder than a novel, I think.
Yeah, I have like 3 documentaries that I'm doing now. I finished 2 already, and you know, and Nidia helped me film one of them. You know, but it is that piece of, and it's funny because as I'm doing the, you know, I after we did all the filming, I went back in and I started logging, oh, this person said this and this person said that, so that I could put them all in the order that I wanted them to go. Because then it becomes then it becomes the who should follow who and what comment is good with what comment. Right. And so from there, I've gone to the, okay, well, this other story needs to be told as well. And bringing it from two different aspects.
Well, it sounds like you're doing really good. And so, I mean, if you finished two, you're way ahead of most of us, right? I'm curious to know what other people are writing. For example, Nidia, can you share? Just, you don't have to give details, obviously, but just, you know, is it a novel or a poem or a...
Well, that's precisely when I'm having most trouble, because everything started when I started research to try to get my family out of Venezuela. Mm-hmm. Right now, currently, Spain is offering repatriation to those Sephardic Jews that were expelled from Spain in the 1500s. All you have to do is to prove that you descend from these people. Of course, can you imagine? But I'm just so desperate. I need to take my family out of Venezuela. I'm going to do this.
Can I recommend something?
Yes,
there's a book called Tell Me How It Ends. It's not about that, but it's about somebody kind of, it's nonfiction. It's kind of memoirish. It's by Valeria Luiselli. She later did a fiction novel based on the same topic called the Archive of Lost Children. But what it is a really good way of tracking a story of cómo lograr sacar a alguien de aquí, llevarlo allá, no? And you will see how she organized it nonfiction, and she organized the questions. It's an essay in 40 questions.
And it's called Tell Me How It Ends.
Tell Me How It Ends by Valeria Luiselli. And yeah, I recommend it because it will give you an idea. One of the problems that we have when we don't finish, we don't read enough. So we don't have examples of how other people did it because we don't read enough. We read magazines and we read some books and we read the books that we enjoy, but we don't want to write, right? And then that doesn't help. Once in a while, you have to start training your brain to get better food inside of it. So it's fine to do, you know, to read some of the fun things only for fun. I do it too. Sometimes you need to. But once in a while, get into something really good. And if you at first, you know, you feel like you're not getting it or something, it's because your brain is not used to it. And y se atrofia rápidamente. Stay at it for at least an hour, and you're going to see how after an hour, all of a sudden you start understanding everything. And it's because your brain grabbed onto it. Right? And it's making the images faster than you can think, oh, I'm reading.
But I'm actually reading, but I'm reading a lot of academic papers that are based on the historical facts. And
research is drowning you. Nidia, research is drowning you. Write the story that you want to say without any research, knowing nothing. Just write what you want to say in like one short essay and then start filling it out, which is what Valeria did. And I think that will help you more. So that then you go and find the research you actually need to tell the story you want to tell, and not let the research dictate what your book is going to be. I mean, you know, you're going to go crazy because there's too much information about everything, and not everything needs to be in there, right? So it's a little bit like Dr. Charlie's. Placer, what are you writing?
So I write novelas. I have a novela I've been writing for maybe 5 years now. I also write, I used to write poetry. I kind of stopped writing poetry. Somebody's like, no, you're not a poet. You're a novela writer.
Okay, well, no, we're all poets. It's crazy.
But I have a question for you about a style of writing. There's poetry that I write or used to write, where I just use words that all focus on one theme. Is there a word that describes that style of writing?
Well, obviously you're a lyrical writer, but I'm going to recommend you read We the Animals by Justin Torres. So
Yeah.
He says it's a novel. I say it's a prose poem.
Yeah.
And it could be both. It could also be a memoir. It could be a lyrical essay actually too. Yeah, there's many novellas that are lyrical. The thing is, you know, you have to later, after you finish it, you have to think about a different market for them because, you know, they don't get sold in the supermarket when they're lyrical novelas. So you may need a different type of agent.
It's interesting you say that because they're not the same. Like my novela is like writing, right?
Right.
And then the poetry is the lyrical poetry. And I never thought that somebody would see it as coming to, yeah.
Yeah. Read that book. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite books in the world. And talk to me after. Carmen, are you there? I think Carmen left.
No, I am here. I am here.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
What are you writing? I just want to get to everybody before we have to leave, so that's why I'm not talking.
I'm not inspiring to be a writer, but
Yeah.
I've taken upon myself for the last year or so to start a journal.
Good.
And in doing that writing, I find myself like doing what you said, like incorporating whatever it is that's happening and then adding humor to it.
Yeah. You know who writes like that or who wrote like that? I don't know if she's writing anymore. Joan Didion.
Yes.
She wrote to know what she felt about things, and she's an
Right.
amazing essayist, by the way.
Right.
That's awesome. I'm glad.
Yes.
Who knows? Maybe
Yes.
something will come out of there. Yeah, I don't have to ask you because I know that you are a prolific writer.
Thank you so much.
No, of course. Is Julia there? I think she left her picture. I don't know. Did I pass you?
Julia?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I'm here. I'm in the beginning. I'm not a writer. I'm a reader. However, I know that every single one of us has a book inside of us. So I follow these classes or these sessions to get that little bit of inspiration, you know, and the because I know it's inside of me. And that little format that you gave us in the beginning is a nice little way. I'm going to print out like 10 copies of it. So I can, you know, sit down and just come out and, you know, just let it flow. Just let it flow. So.
The best thing in the world. I wouldn't, the only other thing that I like better maybe than writing is teaching and eating. But it's the best thing. I'm so glad, you know, I'm so glad that whatever I had to go through to get that first one out there, because it's given me so many things, you know, just friends, opportunities. It's transformed me. There are things that I wouldn't talk about. I think I'm a healthier, mentally healthier person since learning the process of bringing things out and talking to them. By the way, I write op-eds all the time for the Americano. Last year, I wrote an essay about stalking a man who didn't want to be with me. And the New York Times published it in Modern Love. It was so funny because I know nobody at the New York Times. At that point, I knew nobody at the New York Times. And I went in and I read that they get like 8,000 essays every year and they only pick 52.
Wow.
And I said, you know what? But it's so easy to send. They don't charge you. I might as well. And I sent it. And you will not believe it. I knew when I sent it that it fit. And it fit because I read that column so much that of course I know it. I know that conversation, right? And a month later they called and they published it. They changed a bunch of things, but they published it. And they do pay, which is also nice. It's also nice.
Maybe it'll be part of the TV series one day. You never know.
Who knows? Who knows?
That would be awesome.
Can you imagine? I love the series. Gladys, what are you writing? You not yet? Are you writing?
No, I'm not a writer.
No.
I'm not much of a reader either.
Really?
But I must say that listening to your suggestions, you made it sound easy to be.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. And it's so hard sometimes to say, you know, I'm not a writer, I'm not a reader. The thing is, maybe you're not doing it now, right? That doesn't mean that you can't be inspired one day with given the right things. but thank you for being so honest. And I thought you were, every time I looked at your face, you were completely in attention. So I
Yeah,
think
no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I, thought
glad.
about things and it was like, wow, this like makes it sound like it's easy to write.
doable, just doable.
Doable.
Teresa Marie. I'm sorry, I'm almost estoy cegada. I can't see. What do you write?
Tess, you're on mute.
Oh, she's on mute.
I'm a reader and an eater, so.
I'm in your club. I'm in your club. Yes.
But I really enjoyed listening to you and learning about your process. I thought that was.
Oh, thank you. I think for the readers in the class, you might enjoy the list that I'm going to send later. I read a whole lot. I also do reviews for the New York Journal of Books. And last year I published like 50 reviews, and some are some of the best books I've ever read, like poetry. There's a book that you guys would all love. It's called Women Talking by Miriam Toews. It's an amazing book about what it means to be a woman in a world of men. Super, super interesting book. So Gina, I know you told me. Raquel, what are you writing? I can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
We can't hear you, Mama.
Connecting to audio. Okay, there she is.
You're on mute.
No. Bueno, while she gets her audio, let me ask Tanya. I think Tanya's still here. Tanya, are you here? No?
Maybe have her write it in the chat.
Oh, yeah, write it in the chat. Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
well, and I'm sorry I was late, but I'm on the West Coast, so.
Oh, no worries.
I was curious, and I'm in the process of writing, but it's nothing for public publication, whatever that means, but something for my children. I think that there are things that I have learned as a mother, as one of them just calls me. But anyway, what I'd like to do is write something that I can leave for them, private.
Yeah, it is for publication, even if it's just exclusive. It's very exclusive, the publication. Yes. And you want it to be good, and you want it to be readable and clear and understood.
I think I need the discipline. The discipline was kind of nice. I mean, I've heard of it before and I understand it, but it's a good reminder that there's a discipline and a process to it.
I very much enjoy epistolary novels and epistolary essay, books made up of epistolary essays. I think that they would give you a really good guide. I think they published recently, Elizabeth Browning, was it? Look for books that are epistolary in nature, the letters of so-and-so to so-and-so. Because I think it'll give you like a little bit of a format to guide yourself with, in the little vignettes that you're writing for your grandchildren, for your family, for your, not the ancestors, but the opposite.
Ooh,
right?
Right.
You're writing your family lore.
For
I think that's awesome. I think that's amazing. Jasmine, what are you writing? I think she's gone.
Raquel put something in the chat.
I see it. Raquel writes mysteries like me.
Hello?
Hi.
I'm sorry, hi, I'm Jasmine.
Hi, Jasmine. What do you write?
I got my MFA about 9 years ago, and I used to write extensively poetry, getting published in literary journals quite frequently in that genre. And then I had been also simultaneously, while I was doing grad school work, working on a middle grade novel. Okay. And that particular novel has been in my closet forever, going on 10 plus years now. Mm-hmm. And, I've gone to highlights. I've done a lot of platform stuff, going to writers conferences for children writers. But it's carving that time to just finish revising it and sending it out to an agent, pretty much.
Also, it just
Right
feels
now.
like you're.
And I don't know if I even like I don't know if I even am in love with the project anymore.
I think it's a little obvious that you're not, but it may just be because you try to do too much at the same time. And honestly, I know there are people who write 2 books at the same time. I've never been able to, because I need to get inside a world
Yeah.
to live in it and notice what's going on and what's not, and I can't. I would say only one thing. It may be that you have a notion of YA that is different than the one that you want to write, and you may want to find different models. For example, ay Dios mío, ¿cómo se llama esta mujer? Karen. She wrote Vampires in the Lemon Grove, and I can't. Her name is not here in my main right now, but the book is Vampires in the Lemon Grove. That's a YA book, but it's a YA book that's pretty adult. And it may be, that you're trying to fit a certain voice that you're not there anymore. And maybe reading other voices might give you other ways of getting the material. Yeah. Good luck with that, by the way. That's hard. I see here that Raquel writes mysteries and is looking for an agent. Raquel, it would make
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry?
Can you hear me? This is Raquel. Sorry.
Oh, hi, Raquel. I was going to tell you that it would make it too long of a class to talk about agents, but I'm just going to give you a website to go to, and it's querytracker.com, I think.
Right, yeah.
That's right.
I just played the play yesterday.
And for all of you, I mean, the ones of you who write and it's one of the best resources that I've seen, because you can pitch by email. You can see what they publish. You can see what they're looking for. You can see if they're accepting new clients, so that you don't waste effort sending letters and pitches to people. By the way, never send an entire book to an agent. Always just send the first 5 pages and ask them if they want to read it. They consider that, when you send them a whole book, it's like, apparently it pisses them off. Anyway, if you have other questions, I am always around. If you want to write me at any point, you can find me on Google. Yes, Julia.
I just wanted to make a comment to the person listening in that was talking about writing stories for her children.
Danny, I think it was.
My cousin just published her book. It took her 20 years, and these are stories about the traumas that her mother and her mother's mother went through when she started doing genealogy, and this is how she found us, because
oh my God,
long story short, but she, the family had separated due to some of this trauma. She found us because of Ancestry.com, and she just published this book about 6 months ago, and she put it together because she was writing it for her children. She wanted her children to know the family history. She wanted them to know the stories of what happened. So, of course, some of it is fictionalized because she can't ask them, but other stories that she's heard, passed down, she put together in a book.
Wow.
With pictures and everything. So,
thank you.
Don't stop.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay. I know I have to let you guys go because we're over and Maria's going to kill me any minute.
No, I'm
not. But if you have other questions, you can find me on social media. I'm always around. I teach this class, like I said, for the Miami Book Fair. I don't know, we'll do it remote. I teach at FIU as well. And I'm around. I love to help other people to write their stories, to do what they're meant to do. So, anytime, or even just to say hello, feel free to write, okay?
Thank you for everything. Thank you.
Of course, my pleasure. Bye-bye, and lots of good energy and vibra for all your projects.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Whenever everybody finishes their book, dedication here,
Okay. So what? I can't do it all the way.
Con que sepan que tienen una amiga en Miami, I'm good.
Oh, wait, before we leave, picture.
Okay.
Everybody smile pretty.
Okay.
You have to sit up.
Sit up. Smile pretty. All right.
I'm gonna hire Julia as my promoter.
All right. Very
You know?
Take care.
Bye,
Good night,
women.
everybody.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Everyone, thank you.
Good night. Buenas noches.
Bye.
Thank you for
Okay.
everything. Appreciate it.
Good stuff,
Julia,
Maria.
thank you.
You're welcome. I wasn't, I mean, I didn't have to mute everybody. I don't know if you set it up already to mute everyone, but